Today is December 14th, 2010. I'm interviewing Tom Pandolfi at the New England Air Museum in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. Interviewer is Eileen Hurst from Central Connecticut State University. Tom, for the record, will you state your full name, your birth date, and your address?
Tom Pandolfi, 10/27/1940, 130 Indian Spring Road, Woodstock, Connecticut, 06281.
Tom, were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted.
And what branch of the service?
Actually, I enlisted in the Army National Guard in Connecticut. I was going to University of Bridgeport at the time. The draft had started. I wasn't doing too good in school, so I enlisted in the National Guard. And then after basic training and a little more training, I switched over to regular Army.
What year did you enlist in the National Guard?
1961.
And then you went to basic training?
At Fort Dix, yes.
How long was that?
8 weeks.
And what was that like?
Well, growing up in Brooklyn, New York, it was brutal for most people. It was fun and it was brutal.
What was it like? What kinds of things did they teach you?
Well, they taught at the time basic good conduct courses or military conduct. They taught weapons. They taught navigation, compass navigation. And then the regular going through tear gas chambers, navigation outside, bivouacking outside, and that period of time it was freezing in New Jersey. So I remember standing in the foxhole. They took us out to the firing range for 2 weeks because you have to qualify in the firing range, and you can't. They would march us out, and then you have to wait till the flag rises at sunrise. So you're in the foxhole, ready to for the flag to go up to commence firing. And I remember looking down on a couple of occasions, and my boots were frozen in like an inch or 2 inches of water. But it was the basic obstacle course. Today it's changed a lot.
Was it both physical training and classroom, or just in the field?
No, both.
Had you ever fired a weapon before?
Yes.
So that wasn't new to you?
Well, I never. I did some hunting with my father and brother, but the military weapons, M1, the carbine, are a little different than a hunting rifle.
And the M1 is what you trained on?
The M1, yes.
After your 8 weeks in basic, where did you go?
After my 8 weeks in basic, they were recruiting for a. Let me go back. After basic, I came home. I stayed home for a couple of weeks because they
came home to Brooklyn, New York.
To Long Island. We had moved from Brooklyn to Long Island for my senior year in high school, and then I went home to Long Island and talking with my brother and some friends, I decided I majored in physical education, and after I did my student teaching, I said to myself, this is not for me. And I don't know if it was my brother or my roommate in college who went in a month before me in the service, recommended, well, why don't you go in the service, and then you could always pick what you want to do. That's what I did.
So it was right after your basic when you came home, you decided to join the regular Army?
Join the regular Army, yep.
And you can switch like that? The National Guard lets you?
Well, they really don't have a choice. I don't remember, but I remember telling my drill sergeant that I wanted to become regular Army, and whatever the paperwork, I enlisted.
So that was in 1961?
1961.
Now, did you have to go through basic training again?
Oh, no.
So the same basic you already did
Right.
qualified you?
Right, then you go into AIT, Advanced Infantry Training,
Is that what you did immediately?
After all the paperwork, and I think I was idle for about 2 weeks after I got back until the switch over, and then I elected to go into AIT for more infantry training, and then I heard about a program that they were a White Star program, which was made up of, I believe it was around 5,000 Green Berets. And the AIT was part of the Green Beret training, or after the AIT, I went into additional training.
Right, go back to the AIT training. Where did you go for that?
That was still at Fort Dix.
And how long did that last?
8 weeks.
And how was that different than the first 8 week of basic? They train you in AIT.
More weapons, more navigation. You worked in kind of recon teams. It was just more intense, like basic training, but more intense. Instead of 10 hours a day, maybe you went 15 hours a day.
Do you remember any of your instructors from either basic or the advanced?
Yeah, just one.
Who?
Sergeant Campbell. It just he was one of the better drill instructors, and he took care of us, and we took care of him.
Was there a graduation after you finished your AIT?
Yes, but not as just a simple ceremony, nothing like basic training.
How big was your class?
I don't know. Basic was 4 companies. I'm going to say maybe 80 soldiers.
So when you graduated from AIT, did you know what job you were going to go into or where they were going to place you at that point?
No, they gave us a indoctrination if you wanted to proceed with the Green Beret program, the White Star program, and what would be required: more intense training, more detailed training on weapons, navigation, and also cross training, so that you know what the guy next. We worked in teams.
So you elected to take the
Yeah.
training. You wanted to be a Green Beret at that point?
Well, the Green Beret really didn't. I wasn't really too interested in the Green Beret, title, but what they had to offer, and then getting to know some other soldiers in advanced infantry training. Good. And then we all decided, that's what we're going to do instead
So
of.
a bunch of your buddies went with
Yeah,
you?
exactly.
So where did you go for that training?
That was in Fort Bragg.
North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
How long did that last?
That lasted, I'm going to say probably another 8 weeks.
How many of you were in that program? Now, was it the White Star program yet, or
No.
just Green Beret training?
No, just Green Beret training. It was less than 200. I don't remember because there were other units that were training too. And it was kind of a starter program, not the Green Berets, but training towards the White Star program, which I later found out. So it was more intense because they weeded people out at that time. And
What kinds of things were you trained in at Fort Bragg?
we did a couple of parachute. We did a week of parachute jump training, and made 2 quick jumps. That was it. We did. They taught us jungle warfare, different weapons. Each team member would specialize in a particular function. I was small arms. Then there were communications, there was language. At the time, one person in the team had to be qualified in language. Today, totally different. Medics, what else? So you specialized in a particular field.
And you worked with a team for your training, or no?
You worked on that specific field that you wanted to do, and then as it progressed, then you worked more and more with your team members.
Did you choose small weapons, or did they select that for you?
I think it was both. You gave they asked you what you would be interested in. You give 2 or 3, and then guns always fascinate guys anyway, and so I chose it, and they chose me.
So what small weapons were you trained in?
Handguns, 45s, machine guns, light machine guns, Bren light machine guns, Thompson submachine gun, M1, M2, different. Those are the carbines, and grenades and stuff like that, which was you do in basic training. And then I also in some of the communist weapons, and I don't remember because we weren't trained in them, but we were shown them. Because when we went over, and I think it was in Laos, some of the tribes were given communist weapons because we were not officially at war yet. So they, when we went over too, anything we wore on our backs was destroyed. It was all made in Laos or Cambodia, Thailand, because in the event we were captured or anything like that, they can tell by the weave of the clothing where it was manufactured. So anything American made that we went over was taken away and destroyed.
Now, you said that the teams were cross-trained, so what were you cross-trained in?
Just basic communications. And it was just a working knowledge of it.
So the idea is if something happens to the communication guy in the field, you could take over?
Yeah, and then we were all cross-trained in medics, simple first aid. And that was it in cross-training.
How big was the team that you would work with?
10-man teams, 10 to 12.
Now, the team that you trained with at Fort Bragg, were any of them your buddies from AIT?
The team that I became part of at Fort Bragg were my buddies. Yeah.
All of them? Were they all guys you had known from before?
Or through the last phase of training.
So you guys must have been pretty tight.
Yeah.
Was there a graduation at the end of your Green Beret training?
No.
What happened at the end of the training?
It was like an informal graduation with the local cadre and the maybe a captain. I really, I don't remember that much.
Did you get wings or something?
No.
You must have got something.
No, not at that time. You don't get anything.
Oh.
There was nothing to give, really. There's nothing to give.
What did you do after that training was completed?
We got another leave, and then we came back and we went over to Bangkok, Thailand.
So you had to leave, and then you went back to where? Fort Bragg?
Fort Bragg. Oh, so I'm sorry, from Fort Bragg to Okinawa, just as a jumping point, and then over to Bangkok.
Did you know what you were going to be doing
Nope.
in Bangkok?
No.
Did you know how long you were going to be over there?
No, well, I take that back. They said you would be working with local tribes and basically teaching them unconventional warfare, making friends with them, and living with them, learning their traditions, but later on in years, our job was to convert them to friendly forces, because those above me knew what was coming down the line with the war.
You had no idea at the time.
No, not really. We did and we didn't, but we kind of knew.
So you were going to be stationed in Thailand?
We were told we would move from Thailand to Laos to Cambodia into Vietnam.
How long? Well, where did you land in Thailand?
Bangkok.
What was that like? Can you recall your first impression?
Pig pen. They're slums. But I think we were brought into there for a purpose. We were never told, but so that we wouldn't stand out, kind of. And we were there for, I think, 2 days.
And is that when you traded all your American clothes and items for?
Yep. Yep.
So you actually had absolutely nothing from home with you?
No, we weren't allowed to bring anything with us. Before we left the States, we were told to ship everything home. No IDs, no nothing. We had Army IDs until we had military IDs until we got to Bangkok. Then all that was taken away from us.
That's kind of scary to not even have any ID.
Well, we were told it was covert. You know, you would just go in there and live with the tribes, and you know, there was no involvement with the United States at the time, which there really was. CIA was over there, and but that was the beginning of it.
Now, when you flew into Bangkok, did you fly in? Was it a whole team, or did you guys go one at a time?
No, we flew in all at once.
So it was just one team, or were there several teams?
No, just one.
So your team flew into Bangkok, stayed there for a couple of days, and then where did you go from there?
From there, we went deeper into remote areas, and we went
Thailand?
in Thailand. We hooked up, or we were led into different remote areas by, I don't know who, probably between the CIA and higher command.
They were American, though?
Oh, yeah, they were all American. And then we were, 1 or 2 weeks later, we were sent out to a village.
Do you know what village it was?
No, I mean, most of them didn't have names. It was just villages where the certain tribe and tribal leaders, the main village, I should say.
Now, when you were led out into the remote areas, did you go by plane, helicopter, foot, vehicle?
We went
there?
We went by vehicle, went by truck, and everything else was on foot from then on. And boat, boat too, at various different times.
So when they deposited your team in this village, how long did you stay there and what did you do?
We were supposed to stay a certain amount of time at each village, and then we had predetermined locations to go to, and which led into, excuse me, the first tour. I don't know if it was all Thailand or into parts of Cambodia and then into Laos, and supposed to wind up in Vietnam, but we never did.
So when you went to your first village, did the village leader know you guys were coming, and were they hospitable?
Yeah, they knew we were coming. Apparently they, somebody went in there prior and
set it up.
Yeah, set it up, bring them presents, bring them blankets, whatever. And
so how long would you stay? Like in that first village, how long did you stay?
First village?
Days or weeks?
First village was a month, from what I remember, 4 or 5 weeks.
So you would actually live with them?
Oh yeah.
And
all the tribes, all the villages, that was our purpose, to live with them, learn their customs, eat their food, help them in certain areas. Sometimes we would have airdrops of seed to have them grow better crops. Just totally to anything and everything to convert them to friendly. And
you think you were successful?
Yeah, but over the years, those poor bastards were just surviving. So whoever came in and befriended them, they became friends. And if whoever came in, the Khmer Rouge or anything, they switched over. Otherwise, they would be slaughtered.
No. You didn't speak the language. How did you communicate? I'm guessing one of your teammates.
Yeah, there was one who was very fluent. There's more than one. I think there were two in the different dialects in each of the countries. I I basically went over there for just a first tour, and then just stayed. So I really didn't think anything after Thailand when I first went over.
All right, so after your first village, you stayed there for a month, and then whoever in the government or the CIA would set up the next village, so you would then progress to another village
Right.
and do the same thing?
Yep. I think there were only 2 people in our team that knew where we were going, in case something happened. In
Did
case.
you ever know where you were going?
No. All we knew we were going to another village, another tribe.
So now your first tour was, you told me 9 months?
9 months.
And so that first tour, you were in Thailand the whole time?
Yeah.
When did that first tour end? 1962? 63.
Beginning of 62.
So during that first 9 months in Thailand, how many villages do you think that you stayed in? A lot?
I would say 4 or 5. Some were large, some were small. But apparently each was pre-visited by somebody, and so why they picked these villages, we don't know. But they thought it was strategic that we go to these villages and befriend them and learn their customs, eat their food.
At the end of your first tour then, you were due to go home to the United States, did you?
No.
What happened?
No, just I was in the middle of nowhere, so to be honest with you, never even thought about it. Just continued to go.
Really?
Yeah. And you live with these guys, and nobody wants. None of them left.
Not a single guy in your team left at the end of the first tour, even though you could have gone home to the United States?
None of them left after up to 3 tours.
Your whole team stayed together for 3 tours?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
You must have been extremely close by the end of that.
Very close. Up until about 7 years ago, we were staying in contact with one another. Some died, some became career soldiers. Some brought some of the tribal people back to the States, as close as Danbury, which there's a big Vietnamese community.
Wow. So the second tour, what month are we talking? You said the beginning of 62, so it's like January, February?
I'm going to guess, yeah.
Yeah, you don't know because you're out of touch.
Yeah, it just rolls out. Yeah, really,
Where did you progress after Thailand?
Short time into Cambodia.
So Cambodia was the second place?
Yeah.
Did you know when you had crossed the Cambodian border? Did you know you were in Cambodia?
Yes and no. We kind of figured our command people in the team, as I said, didn't tell us too much information, but we kind of knew when the customs and the tribes changed and some of the language changed. So that's when we knew. And then I really don't remember how long we stayed there, but then we moved to Laos, where we were there most of the time.
Now in Cambodia, you don't even know where you were in the country?
No. Looking at the maps and everything, I'm just guessing.
Where do you think you were?
In Cambodia?
Yeah, you can put that for now.
I would say we were up in we were in northern Cambodia, because then we switched over into Laos, and as I said, we didn't stay too much there, because most of the time we spent in Laos, because basically right next to Vietnam, where we were supposed to wind up.
Did you know that you were eventually supposed to wind up in Vietnam?
Yeah, sometime I would say a year into it.
Now, were the Cambodian villagers the same and as friendly towards you as the Thai were?
Yeah, they were. we went into Cambodia as part of Operation Switchback, which was the Green Berets Special Forces taking over complete command of the tribal forces, and especially in Laos we had some problems because the government at Laos at the time frowned upon that big time. Big time. So some of the people in the tribes were even fearful that the government would find out. So they're fearful that the government would find out, and they're fearful of the communists too at the same time. And we lived with the Kar and the Mao tribes. They were considered the low life of all tribals.
How do you spell it?
Mao, M-A-O. I'm sorry, M-E-O. And the Kar was K-H-A.
Those are two different tribes?
Yeah.
And those were Cambodian or Thai?
Laos.
Or Laos? So you lived with both of those tribes?
Yeah.
Now, was their dialect different?
Yep. They lived different villages of the two tribes. And we probably became closer with them than any other tribes.
So from Cambodia you went into Laos, and you probably didn't know where you were exactly in Laos either?
No, we were. I remember two northern towns up there, or villages, or whatever they called them, villages at the time, and we stayed with them mostly. Those were the people who got extensive arms training. We supplied them with weapons, which were airdropped. And they would go out and fight skirmishes too. And they saved some of the team members. Those are the tribal people that some of them brought home after the war.
So in Laos, you didn't actually, in Thailand and Cambodia, you didn't give them training in weapons, and they didn't fight with you.
Well, no, we weren't fighting at the time. We did give them some training in weapons, yes.
You did?
Yeah.
So.
And we also learned what they could do also.
Were they good soldiers?
Oh, yeah, very, very dedicated to you. You trust them more than, really, as I said, to the extent where 2 or 3 of the team members brought them back to the States with them. But,
now, the tribe of the Mayo and the Ka, the ones that you stayed with in Laos, would your team actually do the training?
Yes.
Were you the only Americans in there, or were there other special forces in there also?
We were, when we stayed with the tribes, it was just us. Some could have come in after us. We know some came before because they set up, or they would set up with a tribal leader, and then they would notify other villages that we were coming.
So the size of your team that was going around from village to village was 10 to 12 man?
Mm-hmm. 10-man team.
10-man team that you went in for those 3 tours. So what did you teach them? Small arms?
Small arms. And they taught us their weapons, primitive weapons. They taught us booby traps. They taught us to use certain plants as poison. And specifically a certain type of frog, that psychedelic frog. And then we participate in some of their ceremonies at night. I don't know if you want to call them ceremonies, but ceremony celebrations and stuff like that. And tasted their local weed and roots and whatever else they made. I remember licking a frog and waking up 2 days later.
Lucky you woke up.
Oh man! But that's why I'll never. After I came back from the service, I never camped out. Never.
Yeah.
Only camp I want to see is Camp Holiday Inn or Camp Ramada.
Did you say that you learned as much from them as they did from you?
Oh yeah, you know.
Now, why? Under what pretense were you training them? Did you, at this point, because now we're into 62, do you Are you figuring out now that war is coming and that,
Oh, yeah. That was obvious.
so you knew you were training?
Yeah, and just, you know, we would go into the village and there'd be weapons already there that were airdropped to them.
by
Or
the-
somehow they got, waiting for us. So we knew what was coming for some of the type of weapons and ammunition that was, and landmines and grenades that were dropped to them. Yeah.
Now, the Laotians at that point must have known the communists were coming in, and that were they preparing in 1962 to fight them?
No, maybe the government was, but you get to the tribes and, you know, it's the same. I mean,
Just surviving?
really. Because it reached a point where we would wear whatever they wore. We ate what they ate because we didn't have any food, so we ate what they ate, and just became part of it.
How did you adjust to the culture?
In the beginning, like for all of us, I mean, you're told what to expect, but you know the conditions and just basic conditions. Going to the toilet, you know, brushing your teeth doesn't happen. Toilet paper, well, what? You know, they told you what leaves to use, and they had some strange concoctions for teeth and everything. You know, to brush your teeth. Most of them didn't anyway. But it was, you know, basic.
So you lived exactly like the tribes lived the whole time you were over there?
That was part of our function.
And that was for 3 years?
Almost 3 years.
How long were you in Laos?
Till the end. We were supposed to hook up with some of the tribes who went. We hooked up with other special forces people who would guide us. I think there were even CIA people too, because just you could tell by the way they dressed, the way they acted. You could tell they weren't military. And then we were supposed to wind up in Vietnam, and we got lost for almost 7 months.
You got lost?
Well, we missed a contact person who was going to guide us to another main camp, and I don't know if it was because of the weather, the rains, but anyway, we missed a contact. We had no radio either.
So where were you?
We stayed at, well, we don't know to this day. We never knew if we made it out of if we ever got into Vietnam, but we were.
Were you all by yourself, your team, or were you?
No, just a team, yeah.
So it was just your 10-man team out in you don't know where for 7
With a tribe.
months?
No, we were with tribes. We were with tribes,
Okay.
but we never hooked up with the person to take us to or the tribal leader to take us to another location.
Do you know where you were supposed to have gone in Vietnam?
No, and I think we missed it because the tribe, when you cross countries, the tribal leaders who led us never knew we were crossing into another country, and that was probably for security, so they couldn't trace us. My guess.
Did you see any combat
No,
in any of these situations?
no, not really.
Were you aware, was there any combat going on in these countries at that time?
With the tribes, we knew they went out. We didn't know if they were fighting local governments, Cameroons, communist or what. We didn't know, but we knew because they would come back, injured, dead. So we knew. We weren't told.
Were you awarded any medals or citations, Tom?
No.
Now I'm going to ask you some more detailed questions about daily life. Because your experience is really very different than our usual veteran, and where you lived and what you lived like.
Right.
How did you stay in touch with your family? All right, so now was it 3 years you were over there? Nonstop? Did you get any breaks in between?
No, it was 1927. No, it was,
Did your family
it was about 30 months we were over there.
Did your family know where you were?
Well, you know, when I went in, when I joined the Guard, as I said, I did my student teaching, and this isn't for me. My mother had passed away just then, so it was my father, my brother, and I had a baby sister. So, no, because at that time, even when I was in college, you know, I didn't go home on weekends or anything like that. No.
Did you stay in touch with any family while you were overseas? Before I left for Okinawa, I did, yeah. And that was it. I told them I was, you know, going overseas. No. And then they didn't hear from you for 30 months?
They didn't hear from me for 30 months.
Were they worried about that?
Oh, yeah. My father gave me holy hell. You know, well, you could have written, you know, the parent. Well, you could have written, you could have called. No, Dad, I don't think so.
No phone lines.
No phone lines.
What was the food like? Obviously very different. How did you handle the adjustment to Asian food?
That was probably the worst thing because I don't know how many months or years of total diarrhea, and that's I kept that nickname right through service too because you keep your weight down.
Do you eat any Thai or Malay?
Oh, I love it now.
Now you do?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Eventually you got used to it?
But it's totally different. I mean, you go from eating roots and fish and bugs and land animals and all that. You know, it's not like a Thai restaurant you go to today.
You actually ate a bug?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the size of them, some of them too. But you know, we had one of the team members was I think he had a master's degree in I don't know if it was nutrition or what, but he knew what to eat and what not to eat, whether it was a bug, a snake, whatever, a rodent or anything. Rodents were a big part of their menu too.
Did you eat rodents?
You ate what they ate, otherwise you don't eat. And believe me, after a while, you know, everything tastes fine. Everything tastes fine.
What did you do about supplies? Clothing, ammunition, your gear, that kind of stuff?
Right, we had drops. The clothing, no. Yes, the clothing, yes. There were some. Well, I shouldn't say yes. I shouldn't say no. Depending on where we were going, some of it was local made clothing, shirts, simple shirts, or shorts, and sandals, and some of it, depending again where we're going, they drop uniforms.
So you always had enough ammunition?
It wasn't a case of having enough ammunition. It was more for training purposes.
Did you use live ammunition to train the logs?
Yeah. Oh, we left the ammunition with the tribes all the time, and then it was always weapons drop or
Do you know who it was that was dropping?
No, we just figured it was either the CIA or because.
You just know that a drop was coming and you would go.
Or we would wait for a drop and an unmarked plane would come over, you know, old C-47 or something fly over, or an old boxcar at the time.
Did you feel any pressure or stress?
Yeah, there were periods of times. Whether you know, in regards to the food, the weather at times, where we were going, what was expected, what anti-government force we may come up against. So yeah, there was stress.
How did you handle that?
Homemade booze and drugs. Why lie? No, I mean.
And where did you learn that from?
No, the different tribes. I mean,
They'd have
You know,
to leave
whether you chew a root or chew a bug or something like that. I mean, it wasn't abused or anything because, I mean, but we had our recreation time, if that's what you want to call
it. Did you do anything special for good luck?
No, what do you mean, like superstitious?
You know, like some people have rabbit foot.
No, I don't. I never did believe in that, and I still don't.
What was your general attitude? Now you're in the middle. I mean, you're completely different than any of your friends back home in the United States. What you're doing. Did you feel fear? Did you feel you were in danger, or was it more?
Yeah, all of it, all of it. But I think, honestly, I think what helped is growing up in the streets of Brooklyn and become streetwise, and that carries over. I mean, you get into the middle of a jungle. You've never been there before, whether it's a cement jungle or a tree jungle. But I remember going through basic training with kids that were never out of their towns and their lives. And, you know, as soon as you get off the bus, the drill instructors are screaming at you every four-letter word imaginable. And, you know, a third of them are crying and want to go home, want mama and all that. You know, and some of us would laugh and they'd destroy us for laughing.
So that actually helped you in the jungle, even though it was completely different.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But there was a lot of stress. As I said, it was new, and, you know, every war is different.
Well, and the uncertainty must have been somewhat of a stress, not ever knowing
where
you're going to be the next day.
Yeah, but we always had the knowledge that we were going to have an air drop. And I do remember one of the lead team member. He did have some type of radio, handheld radio. It's probably for the airdrops too. So we knew. We always thought there was a way out. Let me put it that way. You know.
So that was probably so comforting.
Yeah.
What did you do for entertainment when you weren't licking a fly?
Some of the guys would weave different things taught by the natives. We would fish. We would hunt with bow and arrows or blow guns. You know, it's just a constant learning period because every day was a new experience. Kids took up a lot of our time too when we weren't doing anything. Some of the guys helped with births of babies. So they taught tribal members basic first aid. Tribal people will teach us how to fish, again, how to hunt. Some growing crops. Some we would give them seeds, introduce a new crop. Corn in particular, different root vegetables.
Did you ever get any short leaves, like where you could go to Bangkok?
No.
Not at all.
No.
So once you got dropped in there, you were there.
Yeah. But we were told, you know, the possibility you would be in here for a long time.
So you knew it going in?
Kind of, you know. But, you know, we'll always come and get you. If danger happens or, you know, you're in danger. So we kind of knew. But, you know, most of us didn't give a shit. We didn't care.
Did you ever run into any other Green Beret or Special Forces teams when you were out there?
Only those who led us to different, all of a sudden, they pop up.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
No, some of the ceremonies I mentioned or celebrations, especially when we would leave, they would have a tribal banquet, if you want to call it that. Because we made good friends with a lot of people, and but no, other than the recreational stuff we did.
Now, you lived with these other 9 men extremely close for almost 3 years. So that's almost closer than family. What was that like, and how did you guys get along?
Oh, we got along. We got along great. Probably closer than family, because I mean, you couldn't go into another room, or and you lived in usually huts or lean-tos, or no tents or anything like that. But there were very few and far between. You had to survive. You had to like one another, and we would have like round table groups amongst us if there were anything happened where we weren't speaking, and that occurred frequently.
Where you'd have a fight with each other?
No, a fight, not a physical fight, but arguments, or you wouldn't talk to one another, and we held these what do you want to call them? Discussion periods, and get out all our gripes and everything, and which just constantly cementing our relationship, and that probably what saved everybody. Yeah.
So your housing, you were, for the most part, where were you sleeping? A few times you had tents, but otherwise where would you sleep?
In a hut or a lean-to.
On the ground, on a mat?
On a grass mat.
I'm guessing you didn't have Army issue sleeping.
No. A grass mat, a straw mat, or just we were always on something, or a floor elevated off the ground.
What happens to the housing when it's monsoon season?
That was the floor off the ground. Otherwise, you float away. And I'm pretty sure that was the period of time where we got lost. It was the period of time we got lost.
Did you take any photographs while you were over there?
No cameras.
Not a single,
No.
no iPhones then, huh?
No iPhones, no photo, no.
So you don't have any photos of your time over there?
No.
None of your...
We had photos of going, and we had photos when we came back. And I know I don't have those.
Now, on your military records, because officially we were not in Cambodia or Laos, what does it say? Where does it say you were during those years?
It doesn't. It just, I think one of the service ribbons was the Vietnam campaign ribbon. But it doesn't. It says something to the effect of Asia or something like that.
But they never state that you were in Cambodia.
No.
Now, did you know that officially we were not supposed to be in those countries?
Oh yeah. That was told us even before we went over.
So you had an inkling that you better not get caught over there.
Yeah, well, during the orientation of when they were forming I think the original, what we were called advisors, because we went over as farmers. I went over as a teacher. We went over as engineers, farmers, mechanics. We went over in civilian uniforms, civilian clothes, and we had fatigues with us, and then everything was taken away when we got there. So we were told we were going over there covert to...
So if you had been captured by the communists, were you going to just say that you were a teacher?
I don't know. That's hard to answer.
Oh, you didn't have something prepared?
Well, we did, if we were questioned, they told us if you were questioned when you went over, we did have passports that said what we were and everything.
And yours said teacher?
Mine said teacher. Or education. I don't remember exactly.
But it didn't say U.S. Army.
No.
What did you think of the officers? Well, actually, in your little team, were you all equal rank?
No, there was
were you?
I was an E5, a sergeant. The E8 was the also sergeant, was the lead NCO, who had, I don't know, 15, 18 years. He was already in. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So he was a career military.
Yeah, I think there were 4 of us that were new. Because they were recruiting and they were training at the same time.
So did you have a hierarchy of rank, or were you all equal?
No, when you're out there,
You're all equal?
you're all equal.
Did you keep any letters, notes, diaries while you were there? Did you even do any writing?
When I came back, I did a little, and disappeared because it was in the. I came back and what I had, I went home, and then I came back to Connecticut, and I stayed up here. I started working in a bar in Fairfield, and then my father passed away, and my brother and my sister, my brother and my sister still lived there in Long Island, and then I went home, and we were in the process of selling the house, and in the transition of selling it or moving the junk, most of my stuff disappeared. But no uniforms. Everything, uniforms. Nobody brought uniforms home.
After your time in Laos, how did you know? Did you know ahead of time that you were going to leave the country? What was your exit from the country like?
When we finally hooked up with command, and then they told us they were taking us out. I guess our mission was completed because, as I said, it was predetermined we would go and end up in Vietnam and then come back. So our mission was over, and then you had an option of re-enlisting or.
All right. So when they said your mission was over, you were in country then. How did they extract you? Did you walk out?
No, we walked to a certain location, then they picked us up, helicopter, flew us back to two. I know there were 2. There may have been 3 helicopter trips, and then we wound up back in Bangkok.
Do you recall the month or year?
I'm gonna say. I mean, it was definitely 1964. No, it was 1963. Yeah, the end, because I got out, I think, in January of 64. So somewhere
in 63?
September, October, yeah. Yeah, I think it was because I got home to the States, I think, right after Thanksgiving.
So when they took you then to Bangkok, how long did you stay there?
We did R&R about 3 weeks.
What did you do on your R&R in Bangkok?
Everything.
You caught up for all that lost time in the jungle.
Everything. Drink, date.
You hadn't seen women in
Well, yeah.
3 months.
Well, you did, but that was taboo with any of the tribes. It was taboo only because of command fearing that it would piss off the tribes if you mingle with their women, and some of the tribes you were offered their women too. But that was a no.
So did you all stick together on your R&R?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Did you all go your own way?
No, we stuck together for the most part.
What was your feeling? It must have been kind of weird after. It must have been somewhat of a culture shock after being in the jungles now in the remote areas for 3 years and coming back to
civilized life.
How was the adjustment?
Well, it was, aside from being welcomed, it was easy. It was getting used to routine again. and learning again how to brush your teeth. Not learning, but get into the habit of brushing your teeth and all that. Because you showered in a river or a stream or the monsoon. That's how you showered, and you don't shower with soap. There's no such thing. But it was, learning how to live again as a human. And
From after your 3 weeks of R&R, where did you fly to?
Bangkok. From Bangkok, back to Okinawa, back to Bragg. That's where we were. I was dismissed from the service from.
So your committed time in the service was over then?
Yeah.
And you knew it?
Oh, yeah.
Were you looking forward to that?
Yeah.
You were ready then?
I was ready.
So how long were you at Fort Bragg before you were discharged?
A month. No, a little over a month. That's right.
What did you do at Fort Bragg during that time?
Gel, just nothing.
Did they have any
Reconnect with family.
Did they have any kind of debriefing or transitional program
Yeah.
or anything like that?
Yeah. Yep, that debriefing. But as as we went along to different tribes, there was two guys who basically documented everything. And then if there's anything exception, they would document that. When we were debriefed, we weren't debriefed until maybe 2 weeks after we were there because I'm assuming they went over all the notes and everything that they wrote up. And then we were all called in and asked certain questions similar to what you're doing, specifics, any more to add to this incident or this location. And that was it, really.
Do you recall your last day in service?
Oh, yeah.
What was that like?
You had to clear out, you have to clear out with finance, you had to get your physical, turn in everything, and basically go home with the whatever personal items you had accumulated since we were back, and whatever uniforms you were allowed to take with you.
Now, they had given you the opportunity to re-enlist at that time?
While we were there.
Of your 10-man crew, did any of them re-enlist?
Yeah, some of them were career soldiers before we went over.
So they stayed in?
Yeah, I think 7 of the 10 stayed in. I mean, I know 2 of them are on the Vietnam Wall, so I know they got killed later on. 7 stayed in. Some stayed in for another 4 years. Some stayed in until I retired. Two got killed. Then, as I said, we kept contact up until about the last 7 or 8 years. And then just nobody answered emails anymore. And we met for the last time maybe 10, 11 years ago.
Was it a reunion? Did you have regular reunions?
No.
So it was just that one time?
Yeah.
Where did you meet?
We met in New York City.
What was that like?
Well, I mean, I knew New York City. That's what I recommended because I would show them where to go, and we would have a good time. It was real touching. Everybody crying. It was a game.
It must have been nice to see
It
guys
was
you had been that close with.
right, and one of them had one of their tribe guys that he brought back with him.
So now, you had told me before that some of these guys brought back some of the tribal. Was that when they stayed in and went back?
No, yeah, exactly. When they stayed in, and they brought them back because they said these guys saved their lives many times when they got into actual combat.
So the ones that stayed in actually were in combat because by then we're into the war.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And that's, as I said, they were considered a low-life tribe of regular people in whatever country we're in. So those natives really, they were better than brothers to our team members.
Do you know the names of your team members that brought tribes people to the United States?
Bill Campbell was one. Jerry, Castagnaro was another one. Those are the only two I remember.
When you were discharged, what did you do immediately after your discharge? The next couple days?
I went home. I spent some time with my father and my brother especially. My father and I were. I was the closest with my mother. And my sister at the time was 8 years old. Spent time there, and then I told them I decided I was going back to Connecticut because I still had friends in Connecticut, and I went back to Connecticut, and I got a job at a bar in Fairfield down near the beach.
And how long did you do that?
I did that a year.
And then what did you do?
Well, that time I came home and I had a lot of back pay, so I was a working bar, and then I lived upstairs from it, and I did a lot of drinking, and I was drunk every day. And then I remember one Sunday I was off, and I was sitting at a table with a bunch of friends, and I was wasted, and my father came in with my grandparents and my brother, and it just blew my mind. And I quit there, and I went to work. That upset me, and it upset them, and I knew that. So I quit there, and I went to work for a heating and air conditioning place out of Norwalk, Connecticut. Stateside heating.
And is that what you did for a career?
No. And then, no, let me go back. I quit there. I went to work at a German restaurant in Fairfield for a year. Then I quit there and went to work for the heating place. And then I knew a girl before, from the bar. Then I started dating her, and we got married. And then I went to work. I quit there because the heating and air conditioning place was owned by her father, and it was just too much. And then I went to work for UPS.
And you stayed with UPS until you retired?
I stayed UPS for 17 years, and I left them, and I went to FedEx for 16 years. And I retired from FedEx as a FedEx flight manager.
Did you go back to school at all?
No.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Yes, I did. At some point, I'm American Legion VFW and ESGR, Employee Support of the Guard and Reserve, which is a Department of Defense organization.
Are you active in any of those organizations?
I'm active in the American Legion, and I'm the service officer for them. And the SGR, I've been with them about 13 years. I'm very, very active with them. Takes up a lot of my retirement time.
What kinds of activities are you involved with those organizations?
American Legion, a service officer. I volunteer at the Putnam Town Hall every Friday morning. Service officer for the Soldier, Sailors, and Marine Fund, which is Connecticut-based. It's one of only 2 states that have it. We offer temporary financial assistance for them for heating, clothing, food, medical bills, dental, hearing aids, optical, care and relief if they need it. So I do that. And then with ESGR, I'm the what they call the mobilization, demobilization guy. We brief every Guard and reservists who get deployed, and when they come back on their rights under the USERRA law, which protects them with their civilian employer, so they have their civilian jobs when they come home.
And you brief them before they go or when they come back?
Before they go, we sit with them one-on-one. When they come back, we sit with them one-on-one. And then we work with the Federal Department of Labor. If they have a problem with an employer, when they come back, they're supposed to be put back in their same job, same location, same rate of pay. if the company gives any automatic pay increases or promotions, like after 6 months, or they get those day one. If the company decides they have to start over, or then we intercede on their behalf. We call the employer and tell them about the law, which most of them don't know about. And if they get terminated, or if we can't settle a case, we overturn it. We turn it over to the Federal Department of Labor, which has subpoena power, and it can become a Justice Department case.
Tom, what was your adjustment to civilian life at? Was it after you'd served in, but you had a few years, at first the National Guard, then the Army, and then an extremely different deployment of your own overseas. What was it like for you to adjust to civilian life?
It was tough. That's why I said the first year, I just drank. I mean, I was very outgoing and everything. I wasn't withdrawn or everything. It just, maybe I rushed getting back into life too quickly. Make up for time lost.
Go back to the White Star program. What can you tell me about that? I've never heard of that. What was it, and what did it evolve into? You were the beginning of it?
That was the program they called when President Kennedy introduced. He's the one who started the Green Berets. Introduced, and I think there were close to 5,000 that were military advisors, part of the MAG group, Military Advisory Assistant Group, White Star program. That's what it was, and then when we were in the war, the Special Forces camps became. They were all over the 3 countries.
Was that considered part of this White Star program?
It evolved into the Green Berets, big time.
So the White Star program is what became the Green Berets?
Yeah.
So we don't have the White Star program?
No. The Green Berets.
Once they started calling them the Green Berets?
Now they call them Special Forces. And they're all over. The training is, what we did does nothing compared to what they do today. It's just, the survival rate is, if you're lucky to go through it and make it, you're an exceptional person.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Oh yeah, a lot of it today, definitely. I do a lot of this veteran work, whether it be with the Soldiers and Sailors Marine Fund or the ESGR. Just that what some of these soldiers went through, Vietnam guys especially, who did actual combat and came home and, was spit upon and everything else. A lot of them that we help today are Vietnam vets. But veterans in particular, what's coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, the highest unemployment rate of veterans, it's like 18% of OIF, OEF soldiers in those 2 countries. This last unit came home, the 102nd, a little over 500 came home, 200 had no jobs, 40 of them are homeless. So some of these guys have volunteered for 4 or 5 deployments because they have nothing, they don't have a home, they have at least they have a job, occupation, and it's, it upsets me too when I hear these people say, I support the military, but I don't support their mission. Well, shit, that's like, don't say that. Either you support them and their mission, or don't say that.
How did your military experience affect your life?
Well, let me say that my son did 2 tours in Iraq. He became an Army Ranger, which is comparable to the Green Berets today. And I know the training he went through, and he told me, and he would he was the last person in the world, I would bet my life that he would never have joined the military. Seriously. And I seen the transition of him before he left, and when he came back. Probably the few times, you never heard him say, I love you before he left, to myself or my wife or anything. He's polite now. He's always saying, I love you. I'm coming home this weekend. You just have a better appreciation for life. You're a smart-ass kid, whether it was then when I was in or now. And the transition is the same. Before. And I hear stories, even World War II vets. I read a lot, and when they went into this latest kid who got the Medal of Honor, Living Medal of Honor, he worked at Subway. But I enjoy briefing these soldiers because you see the professionalism, the kids of what you would like a lot of kids today turn into. And when I worked at FedEx, my last years, I gave preference to any veteran that walked in. Even whether he was in the Guard now or whether he was out of the service completely. They're dependable, they're drug-free, they're there on time, they accept responsibility. And a lot of the vets that I hired, young kids, my last 7 years with FedEx up at the airport, I really enjoyed going to work every day. And a lot of it was because of them, because they took total control of the job. They made me look good, but I worked alongside of them too. And I never had to worry about anything. I loved going to work every day and working with them.
Do you think that your love of the service was passed on to your son? Do you think that
No,
influenced his decision?
I really don't. I said to him, we discussed many times too. He should, because when he got out of high school, when he graduated, he was jumping from job to job and he's getting in minor trouble. He's wrecking cars left and right. And I said to him, you should think about going in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, or in trade. Yeah. So when all this Iraqi stuff started in 2003, I was spending 7 days a week at Camp Rel doing all the briefings because some of these Guard units, they're told on a Friday, you're leaving on Monday, you're deploying. So I came home one day, 8 o'clock at night, and he said, I know you belong to ESGR, but what do you do? And I told him, and again I said, I think you should, you can't get a decent job. Think about joining the reserves if you don't want to go into active. I think another 2 or 3 weeks passed. Came home. He says, "Well, I enlisted." I said, "Oh, what? The Army or the Navy, the Air Force?" He goes, "I enlisted in the Army." I said, "Guard or Reserve?" He goes, "Active Army." It blew my mind, and I got pissed off at first. I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, Dad, I've never been a good student. I can't get a job. I'm starting to get into trouble." The light went off above his head. And he went in, and my wife and I went down to Fort Knox when he graduated basic training. And I see myself and all his friends there. And right out front of his barracks, there's this big, best way to describe it, like a horseshoe pit, all dirt and sawdust. And one of the drill instructors came over and he goes, "Pandolfi, is this your parents?" He goes, "Yes, sir, they are." He introduced. He says, I just want you folks to know," he turned into a young guy, "this pit here, he spent most of his time face down in that pit." And so, I'm happy that I say no, it wasn't because of me, but down deep, I think it was because he may have gone in because of me too. So.
Tom, is there anything that you'd like to add that we haven't talked about in this interview?
No, not really. Oh, yes, I do. You're aware of my Flying Tiger collection. You've been to the briefings.
Definitely add that.
Well, I have to say that my service had a lot to do with bringing this collection to where it is today. And that's because when I was in Thailand.
All right, now can you explain what the collection is?
Collection is the American Volunteer Group, Flying Tigers, started and headed by Claire Chenault. who prior to our entry into World War II, worked as an advisor for the Chinese government under Chiang Kai-shek and Madam Chiang. He went over there for 6 months as an advisor and advising them on the Air Force to establish one and how to fight the Japanese. And his 6 months lasted until the end of the war. He formed the American Volunteer Group, which was comprised of 317 original volunteers, of which they were recruited from the 3 different branches of the military: Army, Air Corps, the Navy, and the Marines. He needed 100 pilots and 250 ground personnel, support people, administrative, doctors, nurses, mechanics, armorers. Wound up with 317. He did get the 100 pilots. Anyway, they went over there and fought. Actual fighting time was 7 months against the Japanese forces who were bombing China at the time with no opposition whatsoever. They flew the Curtiss P-40. The AVG took command of the skies, and in their 7 months of aerial combat, shot down 299 confirmed kills and another almost 160 probable kills.
All right, so what you have, though, here now, and correct me if I'm wrong, do you have one of the foremost collections in the world of
Yes, I do.
the flying tigers?
Yep. I have considered the largest. I've been to China twice, courtesy of the Chinese government, because of what the flying tigers did for China and helping them defeat the Japanese.
Okay, and it's housed at the
New England
Air Museum,
Yes.
where we are today,
Yes.
and it's on display for the public to come and see.
It's a permanent display. I donated my collection last year to them.
And you do presentations and talks on a regular basis?
I do it, Flying Tiger presentations at every open cockpit Sunday, and I do free presentations to service organizations, veteran groups, senior citizens, organizations like that.
So go back to how you got interested in the flying tigers, because World War II is not your generation.
No, it's not. I'm not a baby boomer. I don't remember how I really started, probably building models as a kid, which I built a lot of, and the shark teeth on the P-40 really stands out. Nice looking plane. So I had a little collection going at the time, mostly model airplanes, some insignias, badges, patches. And then when I was over in Thailand, I met a couple of farmers who helped Claire Chennault build the airfields. And they spoke of him as if it was yesterday, and just praised the guy. I thought he was like a god, and what he did for China, what he did for Thailand, and what he did for India and Burma. And one of the main Japanese airfields was in Vietnam too. So it kind of renewed my interest when I came back after my life got back on track. I started collecting again. And then when I went to work for FedEx, that's where my collection really started. And in 1989, we acquired Flying Tiger Airline, which was started by 5 of the original Flying Tigers. And that was the airline that flew anything, anywhere in the world. And with that acquisition came almost 900 crew members, a lot of them dating back to the beginning of Flying Tiger Airline. They found out about my collection, which FedEx was kind enough to let me display in 2 conference rooms here at the airport. And the flight crews would fly in from all over the world and bring me stuff. And a lot of it acquired through them. A lot of it I acquired through the original Flying Tigers from their families after they passed away, and a few of them that were living, to the extent of the collection today.
And I also know that you have the original diary of R.T. Smith, one of the Flying Tigers that you actually led Central Connecticut State University scan and digitized for the Veterans History Project also.
Right. R.T. was one of the more colorful pilots, kept 2 diaries from their 1-year contract. And his family notified me years ago if I was interested. and I did buy it, but they quite a few of the original families notified me about parts that they wanted to sell or pieces of the memorabilia. Because I'm proud to say I've never sold a piece for profit. I've never been in it for profit, just for the preservation of the history of the Flying Tigers. So a lot of stuff I have are originals.
Well, Tom, is there anything else that I have forgotten to cover?
No, I think we did it all.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you for what you do for preservation of history.
Thank you. Thank you.